Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I apologize for the delay this evening. Executive session went a little longer than expected. I'd like to call the City of Homestead Community Redevelopment Agency meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, June 11th, 2024, and it is now 5:59 p.m. Madam Clerk, if you call the roll, please.
Board Member Carnival. Board Member Avila.
Here.
Board Member Davis. Board Member Roth.
Here.
Board Member Bailey. Vice Chairman Fletcher.
Here.
Chairman Lawson.
Here. Mr. Director, are there any additions, deletions, or deferrals?
No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Tab 1, we have before us the board minutes of May 1st. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Board Member Roth. Second by Board Member Bailey. Are there any further questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Next item is tab 2, card number 4279, Triangle Development Negotiation Update Presentation. Mr. Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is an informational item bringing you all up to speed on what has happened since our last meeting. So at the May 22nd, 2024 City Council workshop, the CRA provided an update on several projects, including the Triangle Development negotiations. At the time, staff had received updated financials from the developer, Luna Development Corp., and was pending an updated massing diagram of the site. Luna provided the diagram later that same evening. Staff met internally on May 28th to discuss the financial proposal and updated site layout, which calls for a more aggressive construction timeline and better financial viability for the project. The discussion required additional clarification and input from Luna, which was received on Wednesday, June 5th. A follow-up negotiation meeting is set for June 18th. And in your packets this evening, you'll find the draft updated site layout for your consideration as well.
Okay, thank you. Board members, any initial questions or comments? So essentially, this is before us to discuss the new layout, the massing, kind of the configuration of the project. Is that generally correct?
Yes, sir. The developer is still working on, final renderings, all of those things, but just to make sure that you all are okay with the idea of moving from the separate buildings into the more combined form that you see tonight.
Okay, thank you. Board members, any questions, comments? Certainly the massing along Railroad Avenue, along the busway is, at whatever height it's ultimately going to be. I'm not in love with 5 stories there or anywhere for that matter. But to the extent we're going to have height, it seems that is a more appropriate location, takes it off the main frontages that I know the community was concerned about on 4th Street and some of the cross avenues. So you're just looking for some consensus to continue moving forward based on this layout?
Yes, sir.
Any objections? Board Member Roth.
Just a question. This originally was set to be a mixed-use project with affordable housing in it?
Yes, this was originally solicited as a mixed-use, mixed-income development, and you'll see that there is still that character. There's commercial and office included in this layout.
Not sure I'm seeing that.
When you look at each of the maps for the buildings, it talks about the mix to the right-hand side of the.
Oh, this is the pink. This is
Right.
commercial.
This
Okay,
one's yes.
got it. Fair enough. Thank you.
All right. Yes, Board Member Bailey?
Thank you, Chairman. Just what we spoke about, just to make sure that now, as they're saving some money with clumping those buildings together, to make sure that those little paseos, or whatever we're calling them, along with the additional green space, that they really put some extra detail into there, to make sure that it doesn't lose the charm that that original design had.
Yes,
Thank you.
definitely.
Board Member Alva?
Thank you. I'm a little, I don't know, I thought that we were going to have another presentation with are they an applicant at this point still?
Yes,
Or the
they're the
proposer?
selected proposer.
So I thought that we would be having at some point soon another presentation with the proposer to review, kind of do over their initial presentation, because the last time they had a presentation, they didn't have a lot of answers to questions. There was a lot of confusion as to who was going to answer what question. And so I was okay with, starting the process for discussion, but with the understanding that we would have a new presentation sometime in the near future. And so, at this point, we would be agreeing to a redesign of the layout and continuing to negotiate for final terms, and then there will be another presentation before the final terms are approved on, or what's the plan here?
Yes, so once we have our negotiation meeting on the 18th, we'll be able to come back to you all with an update. The intent would be to bring back a fully formed presentation before a final agreement is presented to the board.
Okay, thank you. I'm not seeing the vision right now. As Councilwoman Bailey mentioned about the paseos, that was something that was important to me, to have the walkability of the project. Now we're looking at a project that's all kind of put together. I don't see and it's probably because I don't have a presentation really to look at yet. So at this point, I don't know if this is requiring a motion or not. It's just direction, but I'm not with the project right now. Thank you.
Well, I think as Mr. Good said earlier, they're going to be coming back with the renderings, the elevations, and I don't know that, and I agree with you, and I don't know that this would necessarily include all that. It's just kind of the view from 10,000 feet as to what the general layout will be, and we're going to have an opportunity to look at a lot of different details before final approval. So, is there any objection to the CRA continuing down this road with the proposer? Hearing none? Is that what you needed, Mr. Good?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Very good, Mr. Good. Okay. So, next item would be tab 3, car number 4274, the Chrome Marketplace Development and Lease Agreement. Tab 3, Mr. Good.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Similar to the previous item, this is for information and discussion purposes. So on the August 25th, 2023, the Homestead Community Redevelopment Agency issued a public notice soliciting proposals for the acquisition and development of 204, 220, and 230 North Chrome Avenue as a destination food hall, restaurant, and entertainment venue. On October 20th, 2023, Society 8 Hospitality submitted a proposal for the acquisition and development of the property as a food hall, entertainment, and nightlife destination. At the February 21st, 2024 CRA board meeting, the board authorized the executive director to negotiate an agreement for the development of 204 and 220 North Chrome Avenue and bringing back a final version prior to execution. Since that time, staff and Society 8 have negotiated largely the terms of an agreement that will result in the elimination of slum and blight in the CRA, provide annual revenues to the CRA, and contribute to the economic health and vitality of downtown Homestead, as well as fulfill the CRA board's vision for increased dining and entertainment options. The fiscal impact of this item is that the CRA would contribute $1.5 million to tenant build-out, plus $80,000 in EPA grant funds for required environmental cleanup. The agreement would result in an estimated first-year revenue in excess of $80,000, subject to annual escalation throughout the 15-year initial and 5-year renewal terms. After CRA tax liability is accounted for, the net income to the CRA for year 1 would be $20,354. The economic impact overall is estimated at $3.8 million, supporting the creation of 26 jobs. These are just initial projections, and staff will continue to negotiate and analyze in order to increase the CRA's return on its investment. A more detailed summary of terms is attached to the item for information discussion. But before that, I do want to note that Society 8 recently opened another food hall in Hollywood, and we have a short video I would like to share so that you all can see the kind of amenity that would be coming soon to downtown Homestead.
Jekko went to Hollywood to a Hollywood opening last night. It wasn't in California, and there were no stars on the red carpet, no siree. But for South Florida foodies, the event was a blockbuster. Make that a Block 40 blockbuster. All you hungry residents in downtown Hollywood, listen up. Block 40 Food Hall is here.
Block 40 Food Hall is Hollywood's first food hall with over 10 different concepts, a gaming area, as well as 3 different bars.
The hall didn't just pop up out of nowhere. There's a reason Block 40 has opened its doors.
Well, Hollywood's developing immensely with great residential life, work life, and now it's time to develop the play life.
There are plenty of places to play here, whether it's Jenga or darts. You can also hang out at the center bar if you want to take in all the action. And with 10 food kiosks, how can you go wrong?
Choosing the right kiosk is really important because you want to hit a little bit from every region. You want to give the consumer the ability to come in and really get what they want. And the best part is if you come with friends, everyone gets what they want.
Feel like some fettuccine? Make it over to Del Moro's.
We are a fast casual pasta restaurant that serves homemade sauces, pasta, and homemade tiramisu.
You can watch your pasta being made right before your eyes. The food hall is the perfect place for their first South Florida location.
So it's good to have in this environment where you can take it, walk to the next station, walk to the park that's over here.
At Class Lux Burger, it's all happening between the buns.
We specialize here in sliders. We have one specialty burger. That's a combination of filet mignon, ribeye, and skirt steak, all hand ground.
To save you some time, we asked the chef what he recommends.
Right now, I would have to say our lamb slider is one of our biggest. It's mixed with rosemary, tarragon, and sage. We cook it to about medium. It's served open face with a little salad on the side.
Did someone say dessert? I hope so, because Hollywood Creamery is waiting for you.
I make my own ice cream. I make it in a small batches. And often I change the flavors, so always something new and different on the menu.
You will never go thirsty at Block 40. There are over 150 kind of beers, and the wall of tequila awaits you in this slice of Mexican heaven.
And of course, you have Loco Ocho, our signature full-service restaurant.
Everybody wins at Block 40 Food Hall, and that's a proper Hollywood ending.
We are locals, so we're always looking for a new place to eat and have a good time. And looks like this has it all.
Jekko went to Hollywood to a Hollywood opening last night.
So that was just a taste of hopefully what could be to come for downtown Homestead. And as I mentioned earlier, we will continue to work with Society Homestead to increase the numbers here so that the CRA is getting a better revenue stream and that this becomes a more even-sided deal. But I think the importance overall of this project is that it would be a catalyst for further development and further nightlife and entertainment and dining restaurants in our downtown.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Board Member Davis and then Board Member Alba.
Thank you. It's the same topic that we brought up in the office, that for $1.5 million, almost $1.6 million, and there's more money out there, the income to the CRA for the first year of the lease would be $20,000. That's a whole lot of squeeze and not a whole lot of juice, you know. Is this the best deal we're going to get? Because you got this big bag of all the money we're providing, and then this teeny tiny little purse of the money that we're getting.
So as I mentioned, we're going to continue to work with Society Homestead to see what other terms we can negotiate. And this is based on a very conservative projection that we're going to also revisit.
Board Member Avila?
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank staff for doing the hard work in negotiating with the proposer, and you're working at our direction. We told you to go ahead and start and to see how far we can get with these figures. As time has gone by, honestly, my position has kind of shifted. I have a bigger vision when it comes to what a full food hall style should look like for our downtown. That's notwithstanding how awesome, what products he's brought to Hollywood and his other locations. I think they're beautiful. But I'd like to kind of explore what other options might be able to come to fruition, especially now with our new city manager at the helm. So I'm in favor of kind of reopening the options here. So I'll go with the majority, but that's kind of where I sit right now. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Councilwoman. Does that conclude your comments, Board Member Cannonball? Okay. Let me go to the Vice Mayor and then Board Member Roth, or the Vice Chair.
Thank you very much. And, initially I was not really on board with this project, but I've done a little research over the last few months, and like this particular opening alone had multiple news channels at it. We're seeing one opening here, but it was spread over many news channels, and it was a pretty big deal. And I too think that we need to have something that's going to be that catalyst for downtown. Is this it? I don't know. I think it could be. I'm willing to keep moving forward a little bit, but I'm also willing to keep looking out at other options as well, because we have to keep our eyes open, because we had two different people here wanting the space, and then it went down to one. So I think the opportunity's there for us. One thing we might ought to look at is I know there's a restaurant just north of the city limits of Homestead that is getting ready to lose their lease, and they're looking for a new location, Keg South. And they want to be in Homestead. And right now, we don't have any place for them. So something to think about as well. But really excited to see what I saw happen in Hollywood, and I did do some other looks in other larger communities that have a little different demographics than Homestead, but they were all pretty well attended, and people continue to go there on a daily basis. So I'm open to this, but let's not close us down to one option. That's all.
Thank you. Board Member Roth.
Thank you, Chair. So in our one-on-ones, we talked about putting together the ROIs, return on investments, based on the dollars that have been invested into this property. So I didn't give you a lot of time, but eventually I'd like to see what the return on investment is, similar to what Board Member Davis was talking about, the $20,000. And I look at it a little bit differently than others do at times, that this is more an investment on the city's part to bring quality of life items or attractions to the city. But we can learn from what we spent for the future development of other spaces that we may acquire for the same purpose, right? The Keg South is a good option, right? The Keg South needs about 4,500 square feet, and that's about an 18,000 square foot building, right? So, there's plenty of things to think about, but what I saw on Deco Drive and other news stations, can you imagine them coming to Homestead and doing that kind of an opening, and the rest of the business world seeing what we've put down here, right, for quality of life issues? And I think it's an exciting start for, I guess it's phase 2 of the downtown redevelopment package. And I also believe that eventually we have to stop spending money and let the private sector take over. Because just based on basic calculations, we probably have $6 million plus into that 18,000 square foot building, with the cost to purchase, the cost to build out, and the roof structures and all the other things we've had to spend to do that. So but and I understand it, it's still part of trying to create some additional quality of life downtown. And I do think that the return on investment would be good to have for us in the future to look at, okay, we spent $6 million, what did we create with that $6 million? So, thank you, that's all.
Thank you. Board Member Bailey?
Thank you, Jay. So I have been a fan of this since the beginning. I had a couple thoughts. I don't know now if maybe the deals with Hollywood is a public record that we could look at and see some of the specifics that they negotiated.
Yes, we can get that document and work through that. For
Okay.
sure.
And, you know, we've discussed this portion being the food hall and another one being a restaurant. I would love to see nobody else more than Peg South. That would be amazing. So definitely reach out to them to see if that's an option. But I think this group, you know, they've done quite a few of these. If something comes along that's better for us, then most definitely. But I would try to negotiate a little more and make sure that it is a deal that is in our best interest. I'm not sure if it was the news, but you know, saying that there are games and then going to like a giant Jenga. I expect a lot more in the games department. You know, he talked about either the pool tables or a small bowling thing. You know, just something that really does offer something for the kids to have fun with. That's always a win-win for families, that the parents can enjoy their meal as well for a while, and the kids are not bored. So definitely to make sure that the games is a little more than Jenga.
Yes, and I had the occasion to visit the location myself. There was more than Jenga.
I was hoping that was just Deco Drive dropping the ball. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question. If we were to explore other options, are we allowed to do that under the RFP status?
So this was not done under an RFP. This was done under a 163 notice. However, I don't think we would be negotiating in good faith if we were to start soliciting other proposals for this exact same bay. I think it's a better course of action for us to try and get the best deal possible. Obviously, if we don't come to terms, we can pivot, and there is still the 230 North Chrome space, which we are actively marketing and reaching out for the full-service restaurants.
So even though we initially, our idea was to have some kind of food hall style there, we would have to foreclose shopping around for that type of concept if we don't enter into a contract with Society 8?
No, I'm saying that while we're still negotiating, it would not be negotiating in good faith to then start entertaining other proposals.
Okay. Have any of you ever visited Julia and Henry's in City of Miami? No? It's pretty phenomenal.
Is that a food hall or a
It's
restaurant?
It's a food hall, multiple stories. Quite elevated in terms of the experience of a food hall. And so that's something that I, you know, have kind of been able to take into my inventory of ideas of what a food hall is. And so that's kind of where I'm not fitting with this concept right now. The original idea of a food hall, absolutely all the way. But if we would be able to have something of the caliber of a Julia and Harry's, or something in between, or maybe Society 8 could elevate their concept to kind of bring something more like that, I would like to get us there in terms of a project that we're investing in on that corner. It's kind of prime real estate on Chrome Avenue. So just for consideration, I encourage you all to take a look at it. You know, there's going to be people who say that could never work in Homestead, or we're not Coral Gables, but I kind of have a higher bar for our projects down here. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, let me add, call me the old guy. I've never really been want to be the cheerleader for a food hall there. I don't think people in our community make those differentiations yet between a food court and a food hall. But just in sound financial principles, we're a long way, I think, from having the best deal possible here. I mean, to have at least $6 million wrapped into this. And let's not forget, a piece of the conversation I had in our briefings was that, and I'm sure it's with any other proposer, that the ball is on our court to improve the parking lot that came with this acquisition. So in addition to build out concessions, in addition to the roof, in addition to the purchase price, we're going to have to do that parking lot. So, you know, and I think even including those kind of intangible and tangential benefits here, we're way off the mark on even a municipal analysis of a return on investment. I have to agree with Board Member Avila. I'm thinking that with a new CRA director and a new manager, if this were advertised differently today, and I've used the phrase cast a wider net, I think that we would have a far different and better product than what is before us now. And I'm glad you asked the question, because it's not really dealing in good faith when we're saying, okay, let's go to the next step with Society 8, but let's keep our options open. I think the message from the dais tonight to Society 8 is you better sharpen a couple of pencils and come back, because it looks like we're ready to move. We're not under the gun of time here like we are in other projects, other than we want things to go forward and succeed. Things have changed so dramatically since we acquired this. My preference would be is to put Society 8 on a short time frame to come back, and I know we had these discussions that the component of the tap room is not built into these numbers either, that was omitted. So on a very short time schedule, we're going to have, I guess the terms we used with the old City Hall site was your final and best offer, and make the decision as to whether or not we can live with this, or we need to go back to the drawing board and see what else is out there, and also not limit it, in my view, to a food hall. Because just as more than one of us are aware of that entity in Naranja being very interested in Homestead, I don't know if that's the spot, but they're not the only guys in town, so to speak, either. I perceive that our options are far wider and better than they even were, whatever it was, 6 months ago when we advertised this. So would it be accurate to say to the CRA director and the manager, let's bring this back with some final numbers so that we can say go forward, or we're going to throw this out and start over again?
Will do.
Is that the message we want to be carried to Society 8? Yeah.
Yes. We'll make sure that we bring back a much better deal.
Right. Not that we don't have to go forward with a parking lot and a roof for any use, but I think there's some potential here. So is that what you need, Mr. Good, Mr. Manager? Is that the direction you need?
Yes, sir.
That's 1 week or 2. Any potential of having a session before our council meeting in 2 weeks? Let's drive toward that. And if we have to have a CRA meeting the following week, but there's a new day here where we don't drag things out forever.
Yes,
Let's get her done.
We'll see. We'll see what Society 8's availability is, and make sure that we put it on a quick timeline, and we'll update you on
What's
whether or not
today?
it's feasible for that date.
Yeah. So, okay. Let's try to keep moving forward. All right, so that takes us to tab 4. Mr. Director, car number 4280, the Southwest Neighborhood New Home Ownership Made Equitable Initiative. Have at it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the CRA board launched the Southwest Neighborhood New Home Ownership Made Equitable initiative as a way to promote affordable home ownership, create a thriving community, and as a gateway to building generational wealth. The first step in this initiative was intended to be the construction of 4 new homes on CRA-owned lots that would be sold to first-time home buyers, making 80 to 120% of area median income, and offered up to $20,000 in down payment assistance from the CRA. Unfortunately, the selected developer, Minority Builders Coalition, notified the CRA on May 24, 2024, of their intent to terminate the development agreement because they would be unable to proceed with the construction of the homes. Tonight, staff is seeking direction from the CRA board in regards to their vision for CRA-owned lots suitable for building single-family homes. If the board wishes to continue with the new home initiative, options available include, but are not limited to, number 1, authorizing the executive director to release an RFP and/or 163 notice for the development partner to construct homes on the identified lots and for the partner to sell the homes, qualify buyers, and do so subject to sales price and income restrictions. Number 2, authorize the executive director to procure services for the construction of new homes utilizing traditional construction method, with the CRA acting as the developer and then selling the homes to qualified buyers subject to sales price and income restrictions. Or, number 3, authorizing the executive director to procure services for the construction of new homes utilizing modular construction techniques, with the CRA also acting as the developer and selling those homes to qualified buyers subject to sales price and income restrictions.
Thank you. Board, additional questions, comments? Board Member Bailey.
Thank you, Chair. Again, what we went over in the one-on-ones, I would like to hear from either Development Services or Planning and Zoning what the pros and cons would be. Obviously, we don't want to be in the business of being a developer, but for these 4 specific lots, I know that prices are just so ridiculously high right now. What would it look like for us to partner with a contractor that builds those homes for us, and then that gives us a little more lenience when we're wanting to see who they go to. So that would be the piece that I would like to see is what those pros and cons would be. Either the fee of hiring a contractor and developer, or us doing it through the CRA.
We can definitely get back to the board with a full list of pros and cons, a more complete analysis on each of these options. Just speaking off the cuff, the major advantage of the CRA acting as the developer is that the CRA would not need to take a developer fee, right? Which is what is often a limiting factor in utilizing a developer, is they need to make a profit. So that is challenging when there are sales price restrictions.
Yeah, no, I see that. But then what are the headaches that would come along with being the developer? You know, I think that those, and have we ever done that before? Are there any instances that we have played developer as well, and how that went? Because as far as I can remember, I can't think of anything.
Not in my tenure
Yeah.
at the city. Has the CRA or the city constructed a single-family home and sold it as a developer? We have managed various construction projects, including the building we sit in now. But to your point, one of the major disadvantages would be then the staff and administrative burden of taking on that project.
They have a fee for a reason. So do we want to, you know, how does that, all right, thank you.
Vice Chair.
Yes, thank you. And kind of following on Ms. Bailey's line there, I think we have a little bit of an upper edge here. You know, we've been dealing with these developers for the last 4.5, 5 years, well, longer than that, but for some of us, only 4.5 years here. And how come we can't twist our arms a little bit and say, hey, it's time to work with us and let's build some affordable houses in the city of Homestead. And I'm open to different types of construction. You know, we looked at that in the past, but $300,000 is not an affordable house. You know, and those are the numbers that we were being thrown out, 360, 380. There's ways to get those costs down. We can build a great product. We can provide a good workforce housing type initiative start. And that's the beginning. And that's where we need to go. And I want to see something happen with this. We've been sitting up here for too long and we haven't seen a whole lot of progress. So hopefully with your new direction and the new city manager, we can move forward and make this a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Board Member Avila.
Thank you, Chair. I was just thinking, like, between your experience constructing homes and all of us combined, we could probably manage the contractors, but I like your idea better, Sean. Let's see if we can negotiate some kind of pro bono agreement with some of the, you know, contractors that, or developers that we've done business with here in the last couple of years, and see if we can get a project done, completed soon and affordably. So I'd like to explore that. Hmm? You can
draft the plans.
There you go. You see, we've got a designer, an architect. All right, but I'm fine with moving forward with exploring that idea. Thank you.
I like the fact that we can control our own destiny. I like the fact that we could potentially get some of the developers that are working in our city now to pro bono some homes for us. I don't know how you work that out into an agreement, you know, as it comes along with zoning or whatever else we got to do for them. But I also think that they could help us build them at cost versus at retail too.
Yeah.
So with some of the materials maybe donated, but it is a big deal to build 4 homes if you've never done it before. I've never done it before. I don't know that our staff is prepared to oversee and do that, but if you hire a GC, generally that's what their job is to make sure that the house gets built in a timely fashion. So I think the only thing we would be up here talking about would be the architecture of the buildings, right? You know, the number of bedrooms, the number of baths, how many square feet for each lot. I think the lots are different in sizes too, so it'd be a little, you know, but I'm sure somebody would want to do that for us as well. So it just, like, I like the thought process of it. I mean, I'd love to be able to sit up here and say, hey, we just gave 4 homes out to 4 deserving families that are affordable in our city. So that's all I got. Thanks, Mayor.
Hey, and I'm glad we're at this point where we're talking about doing it ourselves. That is not a foreign concept. It's conversations that I've had with the 2 prior managers to get something off go. And I think we're finally realizing we're cutting out the middleman and we're able to make these homes more affordable, more cost effective. But I think what would be important for us to see, rather than just the hot air that I've gotten from prior administrations, is what's the real difference in time and money versus traditional construction versus the modular. And I've seen some really neat modular that they're using in the Keys, that they're building in South Georgia and trucking down to the Keys for doing habitat and affordable and workforce type housing, hurricane approved. And yes, I would think it would be incumbent on us to enter into a relationship with a general contractor to oversee the project with whichever it is. And maybe we don't have to do all 4 at once, that if we have the financial constraints, you do one, you sell it, you recoup those proceeds and roll it into the next one. You know, there may very well be some cost advantage to, you know, out of the altruistic motives for one or more of developers who have been here in town for a long, long time to do a home. But it's going to have to look like what we want it to look like, not something that's been parachuted down into one of the other East Side neighborhoods that are out of character. So I think that what I'd like us is to direct staff to come back with that analysis, time and cost, and I think I've been led to believe they did the research, but we were all led to believe that a roads plan was in effect too, and found out that wasn't the case. To find out what that difference is, because I think time is an important factor. That if there's not that much difference in cost, but there's a big time difference, and doing the first one as modular to get that going, let's do that. And I understand there's a fifth lot now. We had 4 with minority builders, but we've determined that there's a 5th buildable lot as it exists now. Is that correct?
Partially. So
Partially.
there is a 5th lot that is currently 2 lots, but is undergoing the unification process. The application is in development services. So potentially by the time we've performed this analysis and brought it back to the board, that 5th lot could be available.
So we have to ask ourselves for permission to do that.
Yes, we do.
Did you have to pay cost recovery?
Yes, we did.
Wrong answer. Okay. That's a whole other can of worms for another night. So, do you have the direction and consensus you need from council to go forward?
Yes, sir.
And maybe we can put it on that same agenda the night we talk about 204 North Chrome. Okay, I think that concludes the business for the CRA. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I just also would like to share that the CRA will be hosting our Pathways to Homeownership event on Saturday, June 22nd. It will take place right across the street at Miami-Dade College. That will be the one-stop shop for anyone who is interested in becoming a homeowner for the first time or the first time in a very long time. And we'll have representatives from various lenders, agencies that provide grants, and agencies that provide counseling for those who are looking to make the financial commitment.
Good, thank you. Appreciate that. Board members, anything further for the CRA? Motion to adjourn? So moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Madam Clerk, if you'll let me know when you're ready to roll into the workshop. Was that a yes or an okay? Okay. The finger up means 1 minute. I know what that means. From wives and mothers, I know what that means. Just wait a minute. Ready? Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to call the Homestead City Council workshop to order. Today is Tuesday, June 11th, 2024, and it is 6:41 p.m. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Board Member Bailey? Councilman Cannavale?
Here.
Councilman Roth?
Here.
Councilman Davis?
Here.
Councilwoman Avila?
Here.
Vice Mayor Fletcher?
Here.
Mayor Losman?
Here. All right. Very good. Our first order of business tonight is car number 4258, the Chrome Avenue Improvement Projects. Mr. Manager.
So, good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and council members. This item, Chrome Avenue Improvement Project, is a federally funded project from Department of Transportation, Federal Transit Administration. Back in 2019, September 20th, the federal government awarded the city funding for the design, construction of 20 bus shelters or trolley shelters within the city limits along the corridor of Chrome Avenue, with the associated signage, safety lighting, sidewalks, and pedestrian access improvements. Back in July of 2022, this council approved the architectural and engineering services contract that was awarded to the consultant Kimley Horn. Today, the consultant is here to seek direction from council and the mayor as to the selection of the different street furniture, the elements, as well as the method of delivery for the bus shelters, the benches, trash receptacle, the bike racks, lights, fixtures, and landscape improvements, inclusive of the sidewalks. The pavers are to be replaced. So at this point, I'm going to ask the consultant, Kimley Horn, to take it from here and guide us through the process of the various elements of the design, and what we are asking the council to choose various options, various amenities, and the street furniture, the types, the color, the texture, as well as the expectation as to when we can conclude the design work and go into construction. My recommendation is to see if we can finalize the process as quickly as we can so that we can get into construction real quick.
Hey, before you go forward, let me clarify something, Mr. Manager. We talked about, generally we've been advised and talked in terms of that this federal transit money was for generally the Chrome and Washington corridors, the core downtown.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so, but then you just spoke of 20 bus shelters. Is
So-
that limited to that same core?
I
It seems to be a lot.
I don't know if there are a lot. I think we're using the locations of the trolley stops along that corridor. Correct me if I'm wrong, Zach.
Yes, so in addition to the Washington and Chrome Avenue areas, there are trolley stops that are located along Maury and I believe 6th Avenue that are also included in the scope. The bulk of the improvements are to be concentrated on Chrome Avenue as far as the new landscaping and new paving surfaces, but the transit stops will occur all throughout that trolley route area, as well as pedestrian improvements to make sure that those sidewalks are up to code.
Well, are we married to the 20? Because I don't know how and I'm sorry for getting out of the weeds, how advisable it is to spend the kind of money that needs to be spent on these shelters when the trolley needs and stops are always more fluid. You know, if this were a county bus shelter, very rarely do they change those routes or move the given stops. You know, to invest in today's trolley stops, I don't know if that's advisable. Now, having said that, let's go ahead and pick a design, but I don't know that we really want to go forward and give any inference that we're going to install these shelters at all of the existing trolleys.
So, if I may, I don't know if the consultant has the plans so that we can look at the locations of the trolley stops. The rule of thumb is to combine a trolley stop with a bus shelter at the same location. They are always fluid, like the mayor mentioned. They tend to change with time. Perhaps the public doesn't like the current location. We tend to move them with time. That will come into construction and delivery. What I suggest we do is to limit ourselves to selection of the type, the color, and the elements. Then at the final design stage, we are currently at 60% design. Before the plan is finalized, let's make a round among the elected officials and get additional input in terms of location. So just to explain further on what Zach mentioned, once you locate a trolley or bus stop on a main corridor, you are required to extend it on the adjoining side streets within 1 block, because the trolley stops tend to go into adjoining streets. If there is any bus stop or shelter stop within that 1 block, you have to include it within the corridor.
Okay. Welcome back.
City Council, thank you for your time. I'm Jackie Carreño from Kimley Horn. We're with the design team. And we're here to discuss the design of the city's FTA-funded transit stop and streetscape improvement project. That also includes pedestrian facilities and the improvements to Chrome Avenue from north of Busway to northeast 4th Street. So first we'll be presenting the 4 alternatives for bus shelters, and next 6 alternatives for each of the amenities that are included with the shelters. That includes benches, trash receptacles, bike racks, and light fixtures. These will be proposed both at the transit stops and along Chrome Avenue for the streetscape improvements. Some background information for the features. We selected 3 of the highest selling manufacturers in the state, Outfront Media, Brasco, and Toller, and collaborated with the city staff to provide these 4 options for you all. The options 1 and 2 were prepared renderings with customization based on the city's logo and color scheme. So these two options can all be customized. They have Miami-Dade County's notice of acceptance, which would not require any additional county approval. So Exhibit 1 is shelter option 1, that's an NOA option. And 2 is shelter option 2. This is also NOA approved, so no additional county approval. Option 3 is Brasco's recommended traditional option. It can also be customized with roof style, glazing, side paneling, advertisements, solar lighting, USB ports. This is their recommended traditional option. And option 4 is Toller's modern suggestion. This can also be customized with roof glazing, side paneling, advertisements, solar lighting, etc. The streetscape alternatives were developed interactively working with the city and staff and through the feedback we received from our schematic plan submittal. The design intent is to create a vibrant, low-maintenance, comfortable pedestrian environment that celebrates native South Floridian landscape. The use of various sized shade trees in contrast with curved palm trees creates a visual interest from both the sidewalk and the roadway. I'll show renderings of those as well. Not up here. We also are proposing 8-inch raised planting beds, which allow for implementation of ground cover, shrubs, and integrated seating areas. The raised beds are medium-sized canopy trees with tree grates, allowing for the use of more sidewalk and outdoor seating. The hardscape features are 2 types of finishes, exposed aggregate and sandblasting, which emphasize alternate patterns of planting beds and tree grates to create a dynamic streetscape experience. The goal of this workshop and meeting is to get feedback and a selection from the council on the shelter, the associated amenities, and any streetscape feedback to be proposed with this project. So we can start with the shelters and then go through the amenities. Listed on each of the shelter options are the customization that's available, the footprint, the price. Some of them are inclusive of trash receptacles or bike racks, and some are additional cost. They can be integrated. The 2 NOA options, which are Exhibit 1 and Exhibit 2, cannot be modified beyond the panels that are shown there for wind loading for the county approvals. And Exhibits 3 and 4, those manufacturer drawings would need to be submitted to the county for their review and approval, which takes about 3 months of review time for them to get NOAs.
Councilman Roth would like to interject a question.
Just start talking. I'm kind of lost with all of this because I'm not sure even where they're going to be placed anywhere within the city. So it's hard for me to even think about a design factor when I don't even know where they're going, and if we even really need that many bus shelters. I mean, we can pick a design, but does this also include some of the modifications I think the mayor had been working on with expanding some of the sidewalks on Chrome Avenue so that we can allow for outdoor seating and eating and things like that? And then where these fit into that design, are you putting them right in front of a potential restaurant that would not probably be suitable for the ambiance of that restaurant? I mean, I have a lot of questions about where they're going to go. We can pick bus benches, but I'm kind of lost with that thought.
So a typical bus shelter or trolley shelter is usually required not to be located at the front entrance of an existing business. It's always at the property line, and there's a minimum dimension for the sidewalks. Usually it's about 10 feet wide. There are locations that they didn't get the minimum requirement, and they're looking at easements, or we found a couple of locations that didn't meet the requirements. And if obviously the side property owners encroached into the public right-of-way. So we are working with them to see how we can make adjustments so that they can remove the encroachment on public right-of-way in order to fit the shelters. There's a reason I asked them originally to see if they can find a plan where the locations are so they can see there's adequate spaces for them. But again, the rule of thumb is a minimum of 10-foot wide sidewalks.
Appreciate it, and I agree. We need to know where they're going to go. I mean, we can pick the design, but I think that we need to have some specific as to where they're going to go. And I don't think this was in our package, and it's really hard to decipher, for me anyway, on this screen.
Not only that, they look like they're like right on top of each other. And I just think that we could pick designs and all those things, and I guess review locations, because I think you mentioned that some of these will be placed in conjunction with the county bus stops as well. So there'll be dual use, right? It'll be city use for the trolley and for the city bus stops. And
So I mentioned that because there's always a situation where you find a county bus stop at the same location of a trolley stop. It doesn't always happen that way, but you're going to find that in some situations. And you don't want duplicative bus stops and bus shelters at the same location.
no, I understand that. But is this drawing that we're looking at, are these already scheduled stops along the way?
I don't think this plan that they're showing us actually shows the actual locations of, this is actually the busway.
You got Flagler,
Yeah, you got Flagler. you
which
got the
would be the busway would run parallel to Flagler.
Yeah.
And you have all of these locations throughout, all the way, it looks like all the way up to Second Drive, which is just outside of our building here. Actually, no, they go further. You got 28, 29, and we were talking about 20. So I'm a little confused as to what.
This layout that we're showing up now is all of the roadway improvement projects, including the transit stop locations. So this is a full map of the project limit, which includes all of the pedestrian facilities, the milling and resurfacing that we're doing on 3 of the avenues, as well as the transit stop locations. But the 20 stops that we are proposing right now are currently the ones that are shown on the trolley route on the city's website.
Okay, so I think, we're going to have to stick to picking the design, but, we're going to need some better schematics on what's going where. Councilwoman?
Thank you, Mayor. Does it have to be green?
No, it doesn't. No.
Do you
It can be
have some,
customized.
do you have some visual examples of like other colors that match our color scheme that we picked for?
Depending on the manufacturers, there's a wide variety of colors that you can select.
Okay, so looking at the 4 options, I'm inclined to pick option 2 because it has the advertising capability of it, but I'd like to hear from our police department on, how they, which one they think would be better in terms of managing some of the issues we have with people living outside sometimes, in some of these bus stops. So is there a pro and a con, or do you have any input you would like to add to that?
Before they weigh in, though, I think we're going to get into that on the bench.
Exactly.
That the benches that we choose are largely going to impact that.
So with that said, are we able to pick a different bench for option 1 and 2?
So
'Cause I see a
option 1
flat.
and 2 have an integrated bench, which means it's, as it's shown in the photo, is how it's approved for NOA. It could be, you could change the integrated bench, but then it would need county approval. They also have inserts that you can put for seating so that you avoid laying down on the benches or,
They're going to need to be divided.
yeah. Those
There's
are
no
add-ins.
polite way to say it.
Okay, so that's my 2 cents, option 2.
Well, and I would tend to agree because it's my understanding, based on the briefings, that there have been some municipalities who, in exchange for the right for people to advertise, those advertisers, or the sign company, if you will, has actually funded the construction of the entire bus bench, which allows us to take that money and put it into better landscaping, is different, to really enhance the project.
Absolutely, and we've talked about trying to get some revenue stream out of advertising in general with some of these companies that have, sponsored
Right.
the other projects. So absolutely, that's where my mind.
But again, thinking out loud, that it appears that the only difference between 1 and 2 is that side panel. And I guess the policy decision we're gonna have to make is, do we want that much advertising, or do we want a mix of panel stops versus non-paneled stops, and looking at the appropriateness of the location of the advertising.
I would need to see the layout, the footprint for that, but I like the idea of mixing both options versus having to marry one, if that's a possibility.
Yeah, because, and again, for me as a layperson, the frustrated architect, it appears that the only difference is the advertising panel.
I like the light and the clarity that comes in with option 1, and if I were on Chrome Avenue, I would prefer option 1. But if I was at a more, a more spaced out area, I'd prefer option 2, so. Anything further? Yes, Councilwoman.
Thank you. I definitely would like to see more of option 2 because it's very important to protect yourself from the elements. My only issue with that is having the full wall of advertisement in a downtown area. I wouldn't want to be standing somewhere where you can't see anything. So if there are options where it's a smaller, not necessarily, but I don't think the entire thing would have to be the ad. As long as there's something where it could be like 4x3, the advertising, not that you're just blocked completely from being able to see what's on the other side.
So if I may, so the geometry of the advertising panel is dictated by the owner of the property. So the city can define that an advertisement should not be more than 3 feet by 4 feet, right? And keep in mind that the side panels are glass. So it's see-through, it's transparent, you can see somebody sitting there, and it always has a lighting, which is solar, so at any time of the day it's lit, so the cops can always see somebody sitting there.
Definitely, we want to see who's sitting in there, but as a rider, I would want to see what's outside of the bus stop as well. So that was my point about having that full wall. Thank you.
Well, and I guess in that regard, perhaps, and I'll ask the question, are the panel sides interchangeable? It may be appropriate to have a panel on one side in one location versus a panel on the other side in another. I mean, depending on which way your bus would be coming from even, so you want the open end.
It depends on the NOA documents that were submitted. I think that they can be interchangeable based on those approved documents. That's what we would have to check.
Do you know if that side panel can be different sizes?
The actual entire advertising panel can be smaller. I can look into it as well.
Without reinventing the wheel at the county.
Right.
The only beauty of 1 and 2 is that those are ready to go. 3 and 4 would have to go through an entire approval process.
Sorry, just to be clear, it doesn't mean that the panel needs to be a different size. It means that the poster that's inserted needs to be a different size. So it leaves a border around. I'm not saying change the size of the side. I'm saying that there's at least, 2-3 feet on either side that you can see if somebody's standing on the other side.
That's assuming if the perimeter of the sign around the advertisement is clear glass. That's assuming that there has to be.
Yeah.
Those two would be probably easily maintained as well because the county has just recently proposed and installed 330 of the option 2 shelters within the city limits. So those are the most common as well.
Do you know, is 1 a flat roof and 2's 2 appears to be a slanted roof, or is that just the perspective?
That's
Or-
just a perspective.
So,
Yeah, the cantilever option has a smaller footprint. That's why it's more popular, because you can meet your ADA clearance requirements based on the locations of the poles. But that is either one.
so, but, and again, option 2 could be with or without the side panel. Is that correct?
Well, I'll check on the
Okay.
NOA documents.
Because I think, and again, advertising overkill. But anyone else? Any other comments?
Just looking at it from this perspective, the side panels on option 2 and option 1 doesn't have a side panel.
That appears to be the
That's
only
what
difference.
appears to be the only difference. But I think a mix of both throughout the city as well.
Well, either option 2, if they are different structurally, you go, if we can do it, option 2, but without the side panel on some of option 2. We don't need advertising on every one of them.
I have another question. On option 2, is that side panel compatible with like electronic advertising, or is it only poster?
I'm not sure. The shelter itself can be solar LED lit, so I can find out if that's a customization.
Can I answer that question? So you're correct. They are not digital. So they flip them, I think, on a regular routine based on the purchases of ads. There is a standalone kiosk that does digital advertising that we're speaking to as well. At some point, we're going to come back to this council to do the presentation.
Very good. Okay, so do we have a consensus as to option 2, with the option of the option 2 not having the advertising panel in each one of them? Now, let me pour out the can of worms a little bit. You ask about the color. Can you bring us that manufacturer's color palette?
Yes.
Okay. But structurally, that's the one that's ready to go at the counter.
Correct.
All right.
Next.
What's next? Benches?
The amenities we can look at as well. You can do integrated associated with the manufacturer or not. We can change.
Before we finalize, since we are utilizing a grant to do the construction, I would suggest we buy additional spares to keep in storage because we're responsible for the maintenance. These things get vandalized almost every month in Miami and the entire county. So we should have the ability to restore them and replace them if they get damaged.
The panels?
Yeah, the panels, because they're glass.
For option 2, the benches are integrated. So those, we can add on to them with the dividers, but we cannot change the bench that's proposed right now. The trash receptacles, we can. We have surface-mounted trash receptacles or the receptacles that are attached to the side of the shelter. Both of those are also included in the price of the shelter. So the bench. The associated trash receptacle for that option is the top left on this board.
The top left is what comes with the shelter,
Correct.
built into that price?
Yes.
Okay. Now, let's think bigger picture. As we think about the receptacles and the benches, let's think about the receptacles and the benches that we would want to place along the roadway in front of businesses, not in conjunction with the shelters, but general seating and trash opportunity.
Yes.
I'm sorry? It all needs to match, both in terms of whatever color palette we choose for the shelters, probably needs to match with the benches and the receptacles. You know, and look, and if a different receptacle comes with the shelter, that's one thing, but, you know, I was looking at the bottom right trash can
Right,
because it
the third one.
shields water from getting into the garbage.
Yeah, the bottom row.
Bottom right
Yes.
with the umbrella over the receptacle. It's kind of what I was partial to. For general street stuff, you know, above and beyond the shelters.
Do those come in different colors too? Or?
Yes.
Okay. And then,
Mayor, if I can.
yes,
We
Mr.
need to-
Vice
we
Mayor.
need to make sure that we're thinking of our employees too, and they're the ones out there servicing these things, and they're having moving parts and things that break, and, you know, having the right stock in the back so we can replace them, because those things do break.
Oh, absolutely, and I understand that most of these have better finishes and are powder coated rather than the painted finishes that are out here on the plaza that are not holding up at all. These would be, when you look at the price tags attached to them, they better be more durable than what's out on the plaza. But we have, you know, we've dealt with the bus shelters, but we also need to be thinking about the general streetscape as well. And again, just personal preference would be the trash can, the bottom right trash can that keeps the weather out of the trash bags that our guys have to go pick up and keep emptied.
I like the sleekness of the two center ones that are the silver, but I feel like they're gonna rust eventually, even though they're probably stainless steel and whatnot.
And they look small.
And you can see the dirt faster on those lighter ones, so.
Right.
But if I had to pick the top two, I would say the bottom right and then the top right, if I had to narrow it down to two.
Yeah, and those were my preferences, and really kind of broke with, you know, 'cause you see when I travel, you see those covered cans more often than not now in nicer areas. Yeah. Right. Anything further? Any more input on the trash cans? All right. So moving along to the bus racks. I'll let y'all figure that out. The bus racks, the bike racks.
I think what's common is that bottom right one usually, right? I mean,
I think so, in my experience.
I'm not an avid bike rider, so I wouldn't be able to opine as to what's more comfortable and more ideal for the bike rider themselves. Anybody want to guess?
Oh, and that one fixture accommodates more bicycles than having doubles
I
all
was
up
gonna
and down
say,
the street.
that should be the deciding factor.
Yeah. So the bottom right for the bike rack.
They will be proposed at every shelter. They don't have to be.
Right.
From an aesthetic point of view, it's not the
Well, they
best
don't have to
looking-
be everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. There's certain areas we might be able to omit them, they're not sightly.
Right. Well, and we'll determine, you know, I think in-house we can determine the appropriate placement, just as we're going to do with these shelters.
We have the layout. We can set up the layout so that they can accommodate it, and then you can decide if you want to place them or not.
And then, okay, so the bus shelters come with the integrated seats, and we'll have to come back and make sure that dividers can be installed without reinventing the wheel. So I'll just say for my taste, for the benches, the bottom left, I like benches with a back for the streets. It's got the dividers there. And again, if we can match, you know, the color palette, if that's what we want to do, given the more traditional style. Again, my personal preference would be the bottom left. The bottom left with the dividers with the back. Okay. Moving on to the hard part, the lighting. Let me just throw this out there. I'm not in love with any of them, but the bottom center is the only one that's historically accurate for downtown. Now, some comments you've made, Vice Mayor, and observations we've all had about fixtures that fill with water. And I would agree with some of the Vice Mayor's prior comments. You know, unless these are, you know, the current or next generation LED with the directional stuff inside, the lights that we have downtown now that are similar to this shoot the light sideways rather than down. We seem to still have dark sidewalks. So I think whichever one we pick, we need to be sure that either the light is diffused downward or, and I noticed this, I don't know, but sometime within the last year, there's some really nice new lights throughout the parking lot of the hospital. You know, they're on a gooseneck arm, and they're kind of the dome lights where it's all focused downward, and there's nothing like that here. You know, so if we're going to go, you know, to be historically accurate and not too over the top, for me, the bottom center would be the only one. I'd like to know how that light is focused, or let's look at some other examples of fixture styles that clearly focus the light downward onto the sidewalks and spilling out into the parking areas. No, any inside knowledge on the focus of the light? Because what we have now is not cutting it.
The location of the poles will be run with the photometrics, and that will meet the county's design criteria for lighting pedestrian and street. If you have a preference of a luminaire that you want us to include in addition to meeting the county requirement, we can do that.
All right, so for now, depending on what the photometrics are, any other contrary comments? The choice among these six?
No, I
say
agree.
I'm leaning toward the bottom center.
Yeah, no, and I had the same concerns on our one-on-ones, you know, just with the, you know, these types of lights where you can see the dirt accumulating, the bugs, the water, the burnout, but I think they're LED now, so they probably won't have the burnout look anymore. But if there are some other options you can throw at us between now and the next time we meet, that'd be great. But off of these six, bottom center for me too. Thank you.
Yeah, just, you know, if you have a chance, go through the hospital parking lot at night with that style of light that clearly focuses everything downward. It's nice, clean light. It's like daylight, but it's not obnoxiously.
Are we having, with regards to the landscaping, is that in this discussion too?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll wait.
That's next.
Are you ready to move on to landscaping or something else? I think we've gone through the furniture and lighting.
That's it. We're done with the amenities, so we can move on to the landscaping section.
Does your landscaping consultation include like the irrigation requirements for it all and everything?
Yeah, Rebecca is here doing the landscape. She's our landscape architect, so I'll let her speak to your question specifically.
Welcome.
Yes, irrigation would be included. So we provided two options originally, and after discussion with the city manager, we decided to meld those two options together. We proposed 6-inch or 8-inch raised planting beds with integrated benches and alternating with tree grates. So you get a bit of a variety. The hardscape would be, we're proposing concrete in two different finishes, exposed aggregate and sandblast. They could be slightly different colors, or they could just change in finish. But it would kind of accentuate the alternating pattern of going from tree grates to the raised planters.
Oh, and let me ask staff, because I don't know that you all know the answer to that. Are these finishes similar to the walkways in Lossner Park? Is that what we're talking about here? Kind of with the flat pebbles in the sidewalk? Are y'all familiar with the finish that they're proposing for the sidewalks?
So
Outside of Losner, or?
they're talking about the sidewalks that are inside of Losner Park?
I know that they're concrete. I haven't been there actually, but I think that they were.
They've got aggregate in them. They've got the textured
So I
finish.
think the
They were
exposed
salt
aggregate that you're talking about is, I believe, it's still a flat finish. It's,
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a flat,
Okay.
just a slightly rougher texture. So it's a minimal intervention that we've seen really positive results when it's actually installed. It's minimal but effective.
So, go back, talk to me about, I think you mentioned the species. I didn't catch it. Tell you the truth, if you took all the palms out, it wouldn't hurt my heart at all that are in here. I think we need to be looking at canopy cover. But more importantly, I think to Councilman Ross' point, are we reconfiguring the planting beds and reconfiguring and adding and removing parking spaces to, that's what I really need to see is kind of the overhead drawing of what the configuration will be of the landscape islands versus,
So
you know,
we're just
parking or no
pulling that
parking
out.
on both Washington and Chrome.
And that would be kind of my thought too, is what are we removing from there now? And what are we replacing it with? Because unfortunately, we don't have real live pictures of our streetscape. It's animated, but it would be nice to know, similar to the bus benches and their placement, what are we removing, and then what are we replacing it with? So, I mean, because we're going to obviously have to remove some stuff.
Real world segments
Yeah,
to view here.
yeah. 'cause-
So we have, this is just a snippet of this combined option. We're not proposing the removal of any parking spots. We are proposing the removal of all existing palms and trees. We will be possibly relocating some existing specimens and putting them back on site. That's a conversation we plan on having a little later. Essentially, it'll be alternating between the raised planting beds and the tree grates. The intention for the tree grates was to provide some more space for vendors, potentially outdoor seating, while the raised planters was more oriented towards shade and sitting, and it created a bit more variety rather than just having a single row of tree grates and trees. So, and the palms that we are proposing would be more of an accent. They wouldn't be primarily palms. We were thinking curved trunk sables, which are usually low maintenance, low water, easily accessible.
For example, you know, and I think when we went out and had the promotion for the acquisition of the 204 building, there was some discussion about, well, why don't we take a parking space or two out from in front of the 204 building to create that gathering area or an entertainment area. And it seemed, you know, and this goes back a couple years ago, first time when I walked the street with the prior manager and public works director, we talked about how to relocate spaces. Not necessarily significantly reduce or even reduce the spaces, but by the removal of some of the landscaping islands, you could create a new space while you're removing a space over here to create those sidewalk widths. And I'm really having a hard time conceptualizing from what you've provided. And, you know, I'm kind of I need pretty pictures and maps and, you know, to have an idea of what it may look like.
So we do have some more renders where you can see the areas that are much more open due to those tree grates, and areas that are a little bit more enclosed and intimate with the raised planting beds.
Did you say sea grape trees?
They are, yes, we have included sea grapes as a potential.
These look
but
like
I was
queen
talking
crepe
about-
myrtle trees here.
I was referring to the raised planters. These we were thinking, and again, this is just a render, but we were thinking gumbo limbos and sables, emphasizing native species. So again, low maintenance. We know that some trees, while beautiful, tend to cause stains that are hard to remove on hardscapes, so we're not trying to make anyone's lives more difficult.
I might be wrong, but gumbo limbos are like tearing up the sidewalks in my community.
So we actually discussed this with the city manager. We will be proposing root barrier systems so that to avoid that kind of situation. And a lot of these planting beds there's a lot of space that will be provided. Normally, they're given 5 feet. I think a lot of these planters tend to be over 5 feet, so they should be. We can install them and have them be quite happy.
Right, but, you know, and again, not to belabor the point, I'm gonna have to have something that better shows me what's going where and what the flow of the streets is gonna be. I don't want to be construed as approving any time of landscaping or landscaping plan tonight. Vice
Yeah.
Mayor?
Yeah, just one thing, we also need to be very careful and cautious. The canopies need to be kind of high for public safety reasons, so you can see from the, and I don't want it to end up like our current planters in the middle of the intersection where all we do is come by and throw more mulch in, and the next thing you know, the mulch is in the street. So we have to make sure that we're able to contain that in the
And some of those intersection planters could go away to create another parking space or
be.
entertainment area.
And I wouldn't be opposed to maybe setting up a walk with all of us, walk down the areas that we're talking about to visualize and make some suggestions on. So I think you've done that before. Remove this planter so we can widen the sidewalk to add the sidewalk seating, things like that. And get a visual of what we're actually talking about. I mean, filling in the plants and with the trees and things like that we can do that. But I'm a visual person. I got to see it.
No,
I got to
get it.
understand it.
I'm with you.
And maybe we can set up a time and just go walk it and have our thoughts and
Yeah.
put it together. I mean,
Yeah, I'd still like the before and after pictures so we can see that in future discussions, but I would be happy to do a walkthrough so we can kind of see firsthand where things would go and whatnot.
you have to sunshine that meeting if we walk down the street.
And that's fine, we can do that.
One of the questions I had as it pertains to the lighting is, and maybe it's a little too expensive, but can we do any planters off the lights? I see that in some beautiful neighborhoods.
You're referring to landscape lighting, just having it in the planting bed, or
Would this be the time to be able to do it if you're redoing sidewalks and whatnot?
yeah, the integration of landscape lighting is definitely possible. It is.
No, actual hanging planters with flowers in them off of the lights. But they would need irrigation.
In order to, yes. So that would be
Is that
something
too much
that
to
would-
ask? What do you think? Right, so when you look at those extra options for lights, it would need to incorporate some of that. Thank you.
For the roadway improvements for Cromwell milling and resurfacing the existing pavement, if you want us to add bulb outs, curbed bulb outs, or reduce the on-street parking to make it more comfortable, we can look into doing that too with our roadway improvement plan in combination with the landscape design.
Well, and again, I agree with Councilman Roth. If we can schedule a sunshine meeting where, if you all can be there, where we walk down the street and have that visual of, we don't just want to relocate new landscaping where the old landscaping exists. I think this is our generational chance to make it better.
Mayor, it's a good time to see where those bus stops will go in front of which near or in front of which
Yeah.
businesses. Panthers?
The new, yeah. Oh, absolutely. And as we get into our semi-quincentennial celebration, where we're going to have flags and our logo banners lining Chrome Avenue in Washington, and ultimately Speedway Boulevard with oversized, but we digress. What else do you have for us?
that's all we have for you.
Well, thank you. Appreciate
you
you
so
coming
much for
down. I
your
think we
time.
made great progress tonight on picking the furniture.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, does that conclude the workshop, Mr. Manager?
Sir, thank you
Good.
guys.
So we will bring this to a close with a request to the manager to schedule a preferably morning time before it starts raining and gets too hot sunshine session to walk the streets. All right, so we'll now adjourn the workshop, and when I get the appropriate signal from the city clerk, we will move into the committee of the whole. So is that all my agendas? Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the City of Homestead Committee of the Whole meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, June 11th, 2024, and it is now 7:29 p.m. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Avila.
Here.
Councilwoman Bailey. Councilman Davis.
Here.
Councilman Ron. Councilman Cannonball. Vice Mayor Fletcher.
Here.
Mayor Lawson.
Here. Thank you all. All right, Mr. Manager, are there any additions, deletions, or deferrals?
None.
Thank you, sir. We have before us at tab 1 the minutes of the Committee of the Whole of April 9th, 2024. We have a motion to approve.
Motion.
Moved and seconded. Moved by the Vice Mayor, seconded by Councilwoman Avila. Any further comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Next item is tab 2, motion to place car number 4246 on the council agenda, a professional artist services agreement with Kenny McGuire. Is that you, Mr. Hennis?
Thank you, sir. At the April 9, 2024 Committee of the Whole meeting, City Council selected a submission from Kenny McGuire for design, fabrication, and installation of a public art-funded mural on the rear wall of the Seminole Theater. The revised call to artists was originally posted for submissions on April 19, 2023. The mural timeline is up to 8 weeks following the completion of a separate city contract for resurfacing and waterproofing of the Seminole Theater exterior building envelope. The fiscal impact for this project is $68,000, and if you have any questions, Mr. McGuire is online.
Good. Thank you, Mr. McGuire, for being here. Council, any further questions or comments other than how fast and how long, right?
So excited. It's going to be beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. What an addition. All right, do we have, well, let's take public comment. Close the public comment. We have a motion to approve. Moved by Councilman Cannonball.
Second with a question.
Second with a question.
Just want to
Councilwoman.
get clarification regarding the lighting. There's going to be lighting on both sides, although one artist is doing the lighting for both, correct?
That is correct. The next agreement that you have before you is with A.J. Davis, and his contract will have lighting for the wall that Kenny is doing as well.
Thank you.
Very good. So, all in favor? Any opposed? All right, next item, tab 2, is a motion to place car number 4246 on the council agenda. Oh, no, wrong one. We did that one. Tab 3, 4247 on the council agenda, professional services, artist services agreement with A.J. Davis. Mr.
Thank you.
Hennis.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the tandem project with the previous one. This is for the north wall of the Seminole Theater where he's doing a blue heron scene. Very elegant as well. He is online, and his contract is for $151,000 because he's doing additional work in addition to just the fabrication of the wall.
Well, thank you, Mr. Davis, for calling in and being here. Council, further questions or comments? Anyone wishing to weigh in on this matter in public comments? I'll close the public hearing. We have a motion to place this item on the agenda. Moved by Councilwoman Bailey, second by Councilman Cannonball. All in favor? Okay. Next item, tab 4, is motion to place car number 4265 on the council agenda. The Florida Department of Corrections Trustee Squad Services Agreement. Mr. Manager?
So, Mr. Mayor, Council, this item is with the State Correctional Institution to offer the City of Homestead with up to 5 inmates to assist the City Police Department under the supervision of staff, internal staff, for designated services. We do have 2 of these types of agreements, one with the Parks and Recreation, and this is with the PD. In the past, we had a cost impact, but we're able to alleviate that by having internal certified corrections officers to be the supervisors. At this time, we're asking that Council approve a 3-year agreement with an option to renew for 1 additional 3-year period in whole or in part upon the same terms, conditions, and mutual written consent of both parties.
Very good, thank you. It'll be a welcome return to the fold with the assistance that these folks provide very cost-effectively. Any questions from council? Have a motion? It's moved by Vice Mayor, seconded by Councilwoman Bailey. Any public comment? All in favor? Any opposed? And finally, tab 5, adoption of the quincentennial logo. I guess based upon prior council input and request, we have some additional options before us. To kick this off, let me do this way. I would ask for a motion to adopt option C as in Charlie, version 2, with an adjustment that Homestead, Florida not be bold and slightly smaller, so that we can put the emphasis on celebrates 1776 to 2026. Version 2. Yeah, but no, I agree, but just to make Homestead, Florida a little smaller so we can increase the celebrates.
But not as small as it is in CV3. So that font style, because Homestead, Florida and CV3 I think is too small.
I agree.
Okay.
Okay. So staff, you got that? Clear as mud? And thank
Move it.
you to our public information officer for working this through. All right, so moved by Councilwoman Avila. Second by Councilman Cannonball. Any public comment? So it's my understanding that at this point we'll be able to roll it out and unveil it on the Jumbotron at the racetrack the 4th of July. And then following that, we'll talk about placing this logo on city vehicles, flags, water towers, lapel pins, hats, whatever it may be as the next 2 years roll out. So we have a motion on the table for option C, version 2, with the adjustment in the boldness and the font size to more emphasize celebrates 1776 to 2026 with a little less emphasis on Homestead, Florida. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Any opposed? Mr. Manager, any further business?
Just a quick couple of updates. Starting tomorrow, I'll be conducting a citywide ride-along inspection of our city streets and locations of illegal dumping with the police department, solid waste, public works, and code enforcement, code compliance. The goal is to physically identify those locations on a bi-weekly basis, make sure that all the direction we're getting from council members or notification from the public are being properly followed up. And perhaps we'll discover additional areas that we need to address. Not just for illegal dumping. We'll be also looking at potholes, street lights, as well as the traffic signals. Thank you, Councilman Larry Roth. He and I had worked together in the past 1 week based on what the county did on Campbell and Flagler Streets, which is still a problem up to yesterday. So we intend to do this, which is best practices that every city manager does, to physically go out there in the field and look at how the city is. So I'm going to, and also you may have noticed that I sent out a citywide memo. I think it went out this morning or yesterday about the rollout of the new code compliance department. So effective Monday, we want to do a robust code compliance. Thanks to the PD, we've made more than 12 arrests of illegal dumping folks. We go to the dump, we're able to discover addresses on some of those packages, and we use it to go back and trace who had dumped them. And it's unbelievable what people are doing on our city streets. And some of them are actually from outside the city, coming in here to dump used tires, huge furnitures, mattresses, and stuff like that. And a piece of good news, I was able to speak with the TPO today. And the new Turnpike interchange that we proposed made it to their long-range transportation plan, and is going to go before the full board of the TPO on the 27th of this month for approval. And thankfully, our mayor is going to be at the meeting to speak on our behalf, and obviously we expect a full passage. On the list of roadways that we had asked, inclusive of 162nd, to be included in the county priority project list, they all made it to the list as well. And the approval meeting is scheduled for September of this year, September 2024. So these are the initial first steps you must comply with for you to even hope to get county support for spending tax dollars. So in the past, we never made it to this list. So we're able to cross this hurdle, and we expect that going forward, for proportionate fair share, those roadway projects qualifies if it gets approved in September. But for the Turnpike, which is on the long-range transportation plan, if it passes on the 27th of this month, then it goes to the state for approval. And that's when we engage state lobbyist, Becca Poliakov, to assist us. Thankfully, Becca is the same lobbyist for the TPO as well as the city. So that's a good job. Thanks.
Let me just interject. Don't be alarmed by the words long-range planning. We believe that, the need is there, the funds can be found, and all of these road projects can begin to go forward. It's not some ambiguous, aspirational list that may or may not happen one day. I'm confident it's going to happen, that we are going to see these happen.
Thank you, Mayor, for that clarification. What they mean by long range is 5 years. So within the next 5 years, we're good to go because our projects are already on the list. Thanks.
And with the impact fee and proportionate fair share, certainly our local roads can proceed. Yes, Councilman.
Just the TPO meeting, you said that they're going to be discussing the Turnpike interchange, right? That's the one on North Canal?
Yes, the one that we proposed that is
Would it
fronting DR Houghton project.
Right. So
Yeah.
would it be helpful for any of us to be there in support of and to speak on the matter that of importance to our city, our residents, and to that development?
Yes, I already told them the mayor is going to be there as a member to speak. I'll encourage other council members to be there as well.
Would you put out the information?
I will let you know. I'll let you know.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'll definitely go and support that effort because much needed addition to that corridor there. Thank you.
Right. And just logistically, those comments will be at the front of the meeting under the reasonable opportunity to be heard. So your burden will be getting there, not having to sit through the meeting until we hear that item. You'll be able to arrive, speak at the front end of the meeting on that matter, and beat the traffic back home, hopefully. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Mr. Attorney. All right, Councilwoman Avila.
Thank you, Mayor. I do want to say thank you to the team who went out and cleared the graffiti off of those electrical boxes. near District 5. Thank you for doing that very quickly. Also, I wanted to extend a thank you from one of our residents in District 5 in Waterstone who mentioned that the lighting on 137th Avenue and 288th Street has seemed to have improved, but they are still seeing that not all of the lights are working. So it's still a problem, but thank you for continuing to make it a priority. One of our items, Dr. Z, that you and I had seen when we did our drive around was where the buses, where we thought were buses, were parking by Northeast Chrome Terrace and 15th Street by Soriano Brothers. Turns out I think it's a trolley stop. And so all that like dirt and grass is all messed up there. So in those particular areas, are we able to do any improvements to clean up the unsightliness? Because it's creating blight. And that's our own trolley that's doing that right outside that business across from, I think it's Redland Company and along.
Well, let me interject, is having the opportunity to view that corner from my conference room picture window every day, it's typically patrons of that business out on the grassed swale there. You know, we've got those problems all over the place. That's particularly highly visible. You know, our trolley may have been there at one point, but it's not a stop. It's their patrons. You know, just as I've seen right-of-way parking at, with a new tenant there at the strip center that's opposite the entrance of the South State Bank teller line, the drive-in tellers, where that has gone from a nice sodded area to a rock and dirt, which I feel that creates a lot of, you know, dangerous situation on 15th Street. I mean, other businesses we've dealt with that had parking off-site on rights-of-way near the community center. That's just going to be one of those code enforcement checklist items. But you're right, that kind, and all over the place. The parking on the swale creates unsightly conditions. Absolutely.
Thank you. And then there was a light pole at Whitcott Park on the corner of, like the northeast corner of the park, that it had the electrical cords on the top, and it's obviously not lighting anything but palm fronds.
So that's one of the locations we'll be visiting tomorrow.
Excellent. Thank you. I'll rest there.
Thank you.
Sorry, just real quick about the issues with the signalization on Campbell. I think the same thing in the last couple days especially has been happening on Chrome. And it's a little easier getting off of Campbell, but Chrome, there have been a couple times where you're just stuck there. Like I'm trying to cross 2nd Street, going across Chrome, and you've got one car in the middle, so then you lose the entire road that could have gone, and then the same thing happens, somebody else is in the middle. So just to get on the county to make sure that one happens sooner than they fixed it on Campbell.
I received those same complaints the weekend of the Donnelly recitals, and so a lot of the visitors from out of town were complaining about it. So I think we might get used to it, but then it's a good reminder.
Councilman Roth, anything further? Vice Mayor Fletcher.
Important public service announcement. So today, 4 of our county commissioners were reelected without opposition. Our current district 9 commissioner was reelected without opposition, along with Renee Garcia, Eileen Higgins, and Oliver Gilbert. So make sure you're reaching out. He's got 4 more years to represent us. Let's hammer him and make sure he's listening to what we need. That's all. Thank
Amen. Councilman Cannonball. Councilman Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to take a minute to thank our city folks for their support of Good Neighbor Day this weekend. That I was there. I rolled up about 8:15. Parks and Rec was already there. The tents were up. The garbage cans were out. Everything looked good. A few minutes later, here comes Homestead Police. They had a lid on all the traffic. They did really well. Thanks so much to our churches and our faith-based organizations. That was a very, very successful day. And the city came together to make it happen just like that. So it was good news all around. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, absolutely, and I'll just reiterate, thank you again to these ongoing operations where we make these illegal dumpers think twice. We put them in the walk of shame, and, you know, the more vehicles we impound, I think word's going to travel fast, and that is going to create some aesthetic positives as well as save us probably hundreds of thousands of dollars that our taxpayers eat by our community having to pick up dumping from outside the city. So my thanks and compliments. And with that, do we have a motion to adjourn? So say we all. Good night, everyone. Thank you.